Hello and welcome back to Irma Sofra. Today I'm going to be showing you guys a Jaffa cake. If you've ever had the cookie, it's amazing. It's an orange, chocolate, and biscuit cookie that's phenomenal. And now we're going to be making a cake version of it. So stay tuned for my recipe. We begin with the eggs. I've separated my egg yolks from my egg whites, and I'm going to beat the egg whites until we get a soft, fluffy white cloud. Not looking for something very dense. Once we get to that point, we're going to slowly start adding in our sugar, and then we're going to proceed into adding our yolks that we separated before. You're going to add those in one by one. After that, it's pretty simple. We're going to add in our vanilla extract, some oil, and some milk, and then we're going to add in our dry ingredients. The dry ingredients are baking powder and flour. And I want to show you guys how I measure out my flour. So I take my flour out of the bag and I spoon it into my measuring cup and then just level it out so we don't overpack that measuring cup. That's very important for this specific recipe. I've greased and floured 2 baking dishes. The circular baking dish is going to be for our filling, and the square baking dish is going to be for our actual cake. Now we're going to separate 3 cups of that cake batter and place it inside the circular dish for the filling, and then the square one is going to be for the actual dessert. I do this way because the original recipe has you make 2 separate cake batters and then baking them separately. I think that's a complete waste of time, so I combine both of the cake mixtures and then I just separate it with the measuring cups, and it's a lot easier. We're going to bake both of these until beautiful golden brown and a toothpick can go through easily and there's no cake batter left. Keeping in mind that that square one is going to bake much faster than our circular one. While our cakes bake, we're going to make our simple syrup. You're going to combine sugar and water together. Once that comes up to a boil, we only need to have that on a light medium boil for roughly 2 to 3 minutes. We just want that sugar to come together and dissolve, and then we're going to set that off to the side to cool completely. For this recipe, we need 3 in total oranges. One of them I have already placed in the freezer and it's been frozen overnight. That just helps you when it comes to grating off that skin of the orange. It's just an easier process, but you don't have to put it in the freezer. I really don't see, it does help, but it's not like the end of the world if you don't do it. These other 2, we're going to use the juice of them, so then that frozen one we're using for the skin for that fragrant, beautiful smell that's going to go in the filling. I use this side of my grater to get a combination of larger pieces and smaller pieces when it comes to that orange peel. Our cakes are out of the oven, so what I'm going to do now is take that circular one while it's hot. Be careful so you don't burn yourself, and I'm going to actually place it into my mixing bowl and just let that cool off completely before I start making that filling. Once our square cake has cooled off completely, I'm going to take it out of the pan slowly, and what I want to do is I just want to take a clean paper towel, or you can completely wash it. We want to make sure that it's nice and clean. It's just so much easier when it comes to serving time if you've completely removed the cake before adding in the filling and the chocolate. Once that circular cake has cooled off completely, we're going to start crumbling it up into little tiny pieces so that we can start adding all those beautiful fragrant orange pieces into the mix. For that center delicious orangey filling, it's really simple. We've crumbled up our cake. From there, we're going to add in our grated orange peel. We're going to add in our freshly squeezed orange juice, our simple syrup that we worked on a little bit before, and then we're going to add in, surprisingly, apricot jam. Now this is a cake that's chocolate and orange, that's what I mentioned before, but this recipe is so old and it's from the Balkans, and let's be honest, I don't think that back then when they made this, I don't know how old this recipe is, but it's old. I don't think they had like an orange marmalade back then in the Balkans, so they used apricot jam. I'm using apricot jam because that's just what I'm used to. That's how I've been making it since day one. I do believe I've tried orange marmalade in it once or twice, but I just like the authentic recipe the best. Some things just shouldn't be, changed. So I'm using the apricot jam. You can use whatever you'd like though. And then all we're going to do is we're going to mix this together. What you want is the consistency of like cookie dough. So you really want to mix this with your hand, mash it up. If you have any larger chunks, make sure that you crumble that in between your fingers. We really want this to come together really nicely. That frozen orange that we were working with before, we're going to open up and we're going to take as much juice out as we can. Unfortunately, I only got maybe 2 to 3 tablespoons out of it, so then I'm just going to take some regular store-bought orange juice, and I need a total of 5 to 6 tablespoons. And what we're going to do with that combination juice is we're just going to pour that over with a little spoon, poke some holes into your cake, and then we're going to just take a spoon and kind of pour that over just so we get a nice moist biscuit layer. It's optional, but I really just don't like a dry piece of cake. Let's be honest, who does? Now we're going to take that filling that we were working on before, and we're just going to take bits and pieces of it and place it evenly around our cake. You don't want to put it in one spot because then you're going to have to spread it out and it's really hard to work with that way. So do it like how I'm doing in the video. And then we're just going to work the best that we can and pressing this down and making a nice even layer. Now, the more you press down, you guys will see in the video, I'm like pressing all the way around. You'll see some air bubbles kind of try to come up to the surface. That's what we want. We really want this to be like a nice even layer of that biscuit, then that filling, and then the chocolate on top. So if you're letting those air bubbles come out, we're going to get these beautiful even layers, and that's exactly what we want. To make the ganache that goes on top, you're going to put some heavy cream in a saucepan. Once that outer layer starts to bubble up, you're going to turn off the heat, add your chocolate chips, and then you're going to stir. And in the beginning, you're going to think this is not coming out the way it should. This does not look like chocolate ganache. Keep stirring until everything is well combined. You guys will see you'll get a beautiful creamy ganache to go on top. Pour that ganache on top, and you're going to let this sit in the fridge overnight to let all those flavors come together. That's very important, so don't skip this step. The next day, I like to take a knife and go to the very edge of the pan and just separate that ganache from the pan. It's just easier when it comes time to serve. Finally, it is time to dig in to such an amazing dessert. This is actually the very first dessert I've ever made. I was like 14 when I first tried this recipe, and I have been hooked ever since. It is so good. That combination of chocolate and orange is out of this world. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please be sure to like this video, comment down below and tell me what recipe you want to see next. And thank you so much for watching. Irma Sofra.